So I mentioned at the start of the show, we have a guest joining us. This is kind of a funny thing. I'll just tell you a true story. So last night there was a political event. I moderated a panel that was speaking at a political event. And afterward, I met someone who had attended the event, is a doctor here in Texas, and not in Dallas, but in Midland, Texas. And he has been working also dealing with COVID-19 patients, coronavirus patients. The article is up again on our website, americacanwetalk.org. An article about him is called "Local Doctor Believes He Has Found Silver Bullet for COVID-19." We had a great conversation after the meeting last night. And on the spot, I said, why don't you come into my show tomorrow? And gratefully, he was available. So here we have joining us in studio, our new friend, Dr. Richard Bartlett. Hello, sir.
Debbie, I'm honored to be here. Thank you.
I'm grateful you could be here, and I would love to just have you dive right in. Since I don't really know you, have you start with telling our listeners about your medical background.
Well, I've been practicing in Texas for 28 years. When Governor Perry started a new task force called the Health Disparities Task Force, he asked me to be on that task force. And the purpose was to give him advice so that all Texans can have access to quality health care. And that was a 2-year appointment. After 2 years, he asked me, would you stay on one more year? And so that happened year after year for a total of 7 years. And a lot of good things happened. But I also have been the medical expert for CBS affiliate in West Texas for over 20 years. And I do a regular weekly update on COVID on the Talk 550 AM talk radio in West Texas. And we've been doing that since the beginning of this drama.
Wow, okay.
And so I'm also an author and do medical missions in other countries. And so I've seen a lot of disaster all over the world. But I want to echo everything that you said in your first 5 minutes. I agree 100%. We already have an answer for this. And to put things in perspective, let's look around the world. In the country of Taiwan, there's over 25 million people. They're stacked on top of each other. If they did social distancing, they'd be out in the ocean floating around.
Yeah.
There's not enough room for them to do social distancing. But guess how many people have died to date during the whole pandemic in Taiwan? 7. As many people as you can stack in a minivan going down Central Expressway. And so the next time your viewers see a minivan, think, oh, that's how many people have died in a country of 24 million people.
Now
I'm going to tell you, yes, and I'm going to tell you why that's the situation. It's the situation also in Japan, 121 million people in Japan. They've had less than 1,000 people die during the whole pandemic. Singapore, only 12 people have died in the whole country during the whole pandemic. Iceland, well, that's not possible according to what we're being told in the mainstream media, but that's reality. Anyone can look it up. You can even look at the Johns Hopkins COVID website and you'll see those numbers. They're hidden in there, but I'm pointing them out because the people in Texas need to hear good news. In Dallas, they need to hear good news, and I have good news.
I'm sure you do. I'm blown away by those numbers. I gave up trying to write them down. But you're going to tell us somehow eventually where we get to this point that in these other countries,
they're doing what I'm doing, Debbie.
Okay.
They're doing what I'm doing, which is not hydroxychloroquine, although that works. And so what they're doing is an inhaled steroid. And so my silver bullet is inhaled budesonide. The brand name originally was Pulmicort, now it's generic. It's super cheap. It's about $200 for the total treatment if you pay cash. With insurance, many of my patients are not even having to pay for it. And you use a nebulizer machine. It's an asthma medicine. It's a respiratory anti-inflammatory for COVID, which is a respiratory inflammatory disease. And it works. 100% of my patients are alive. I've been treating this since March. And you use it for 5 minutes. It takes 5 minutes to do a breathing treatment. You plug it in the machine in the wall. You put the medicine that's pre-mixed, pre-measured from the pharmacy into the little reservoir. You push the on button and you breathe it during 5 minutes during the commercials.
You just have a mask on your face and breathe.
You don't even have to have a mask. You can use a little mouthpiece that you hold in front of you, and you breathe it for 5 minutes. And I have, let me tell you what I've heard from patients when I started using this. They tell me, I feel better during the first treatment. And so their chest pain goes away. Their shortness of breath goes away. Their fever breaks. I'll give you an example. I have a patient who has 2 kinds of cancer. She calls me after 5 days of being flat on her back in her house in the bed, can't get out of bed, fever won't break for 5 days. She says, I heard you on the radio, and would you please help me? It's on a Friday. She says, my granddaughter tested positive today, and I think I have it. And I said, I'm sure you do with all the symptoms you're describing. She is currently fighting 2 forms of lymphoma. She's on chemotherapy right now. She just had radiation a month before for the lymphoma. She should die according to what you hear from the CDC and World Health Organization. But I gave her that treatment that night. In the morning, her fever had broke. She had her first good night's sleep. Over the weekend, she recovers. On Monday, she works an 8-hour day. She still is fighting cancer, 2 forms of cancer, but she's cured of COVID. She's symptom-free. She has her 2 consecutive negative tests. That's a cure.
Okay, can you say the name of the drug again?
Budesonide.
Budesonide. And so is it done in an inhaler?
It's an inhaler, and so it does actually come as an inhaler, but I'm using it in a nebulizer machine. You know, you see preschool kids use this. It's safe, it's so safe. It's been out for over 20 years. It's been used on 2-pound premature babies safely without batting an eye, and the fragile elderly in nursing homes for over 20 years. There's no reservations with it. It doesn't cause any cardiac risk, like the accusation of hydroxychloroquine is a risk of heart trouble, although that's ridiculous to make that accusation. This one doesn't even have that risk. And so I give that and an antibiotic to protect from secondary bacterial pneumonia. But let's talk about what COVID is. It's a respiratory virus that goes into the lungs, binds to ACE receptors in the lungs, and that triggers the release of inflammatory chemicals, and we call it a cytokine storm. That's a fancy word for inflammatory chemicals and enzymes that are released in the total body. And so with COVID, we have a killer that's never been around before. It is killing some people if they're not treated. And so for 50% of the people, they get it and they don't even know they had it. 50% of the people don't even know. But for the 20% that are at risk, there are treatments. We already have an answer. Let me tell you, you're right. Taiwan, 24 million people, they don't need to wait for a vaccine. They don't have a problem that you should vaccinate 24 million people for. They only had 7 die during the whole pandemic. We have some treatment plans and options that are already valid and working.
Okay, this is truly, it is great news. As you said before we went on, great news. So you've been using this since early March. Roughly speaking, how many patients do you think you've treated?
I'm getting calls every day. I have 5 new patients today. And so I haven't even tallied the numbers, but every one of them's living, not dying. I'll give you another example. An elderly lady who has a 50-year history of smoking, and she had her chest cracked and had 4-vessel bypass surgery. She's on medicine for high blood pressure and thyroid disease. She calls me after 5 days of fever and shortness of breath and chest pain. She feels like she can barely get across the room. I start her on the treatment. With the first treatment, she tells me again something I've never heard with this medicine until COVID-19. She says, I feel better during the first treatment. And she's cured with 2 double negatives after the fact. She's so grateful. But with this medicine that's been out for over 20 years, there's lots of research on it. It's safe. Big Pharma's not going to make a dime off it. Nobody's going to make any money. It's $200 for the total treatment versus the experimental antiviral that you have to be put in the hospital and then be a part of an experiment to get that costs over $3,100 just for the medicine. And then you pay for $15,000 at least to be in the hospital during that time, unless you go to the ICU, and then you'll get $30,000 or $40,000 bill on top of being sick.
So this is the medication you prescribed before COVID ever came along for other patients for asthma?
For asthma prevention. You know, there's 25 million people in America that have asthma. And so this medicine is used routinely for over 20 years to prevent asthma attacks. It's the first line preventive measure to protect people from having an asthma attack is an inhaled steroid. And so that's what they're doing in Japan. That's what they're doing in Taiwan. That's what they're doing in Singapore.
So even healthy people over there.
Yes. With COVID, they're treating with inhaled steroids if they get COVID. So, you know, for the 50% of the people who are going to get it and never have symptoms, they don't need medicine. They certainly don't need a vaccine. But for the 20% that are at risk of death if they don't get treated, we have an answer. And here's what we need to do. Early treatment, early testing, early treatment. We need to detect it early. For every disease, Debbie, America has the best healthcare system, and we do early detection and early treatment for cancer, for heart disease, for stroke, for all kinds of infections. But this is crazy that we're doing what communist China is doing, and we're parroting that through the World Health Organization.
Yep.
And then the World Health Organization is praising what China did, and so
Yeah.
Italy follows suit. And look what Italy, over
disaster.
30,000 people died in Italy so far versus 7 in a country that people are stacked on top of each other, 24 million. And so I'm telling you, they came upon the same solution that I came upon independently. I started treating this in March, and it works.
Okay, one of the things, so I know you've used it before, which is great. So when you realized that COVID-19 was having such a disastrous thing in America, did you read someone else who advised you to try this? This was you realized this might work.
I was in March, I was working a 48-hour shift in the emergency room, and I was distraught. Quite honestly, I was distraught. I'm a Christian, and so I was praying throughout that 48-hour shift. I'd see patient after patient, and I was thinking, God, what am I going to do if someone comes in here with COVID and they're dying? They're going to trust me to do the right thing for them, and I don't have an answer. President Trump mentioned hydroxychloroquine, and then that got shot down immediately. And so I was praying. I laid down for a cat nap between patients. I woke up convinced that God had given me a winning strategy. And you know what? A week later, I had to try it out on my first 2 patients, and for every patient, it's working. It's what Japan has stumbled on, and what Taiwan has stumbled on, an inhaled steroid. They're using a different one than I'm using. The one I'm using, I think, is better. Inhaled budesonide with a nebulizer treatment. I'm also giving an antibiotic that'll cover walking pneumonia and other pneumonias called clarithromycin, and I also give zinc because that interferes with virus multiplication. But the silver bullet is inhaled steroids. And the reason I use inhaled instead of IV is because if you give a steroid IV or as a shot in the muscle that goes total body through the bloodstream, or as pills that goes total body, every time you're turning down the immune system, the ability to fight infection. Every time you're dialing down the ability to heal. But if you use it as a targeted source, it's like one of my sons is a firefighter. If you target, they shoot the fire extinguisher at the source of the fire, at the base of the fire, and all the flames go out. This is like targeting the source of the inflammatory chemicals at the source, and all the fiery flames of inflammation are put out at the source with a nebulizer treatment. The reason I'm using a nebulizer is if you use an inhaler, 90% of the medicine never gets to where you need it. Research shows that.
Oh, okay.
But a nebulizer works.
Okay, so I'm thrilled. This is a fabulous, fabulous news. So what is the reason, first of all, you're aware of this, I know, that there's great pushing in this country. It seems to just hold off, stay home, wait for the vaccine. When you discover something like this, what do you do as a doctor when you've discovered a new treatment? How do you let other doctors know? How do you let the government know?
Debbie, I'm doing everything I can. That's why I stayed here an extra day so I could be on the news with you, so we can let the good people of Dallas know that we have solutions to this problem already. And last Friday, I got a call from Ted Cruz's office. He's heard about it.
Okay,
so he reached out
good.
to me. And so his chief of staff and another member called me, and we had a 30-minute call. I've written a paper about this. We cite 51 articles that are tried and true from established journals, well recognized journals, supporting what we're doing. And so we have sent that unpublished paper to Senator Cruz's office already. So he's responsible for the information he has now, and now everybody knows he has it.
Yes, they do.
But also, I expect next week, I understand that President Trump will also have my unpublished paper. We're of course going to publish it, but why wait 6 months till it gets published? Let me tell you something else, Debbie. This inhaled budesonide against COVID is currently being studied by the NIH now. Their study
That
will
was
be
my next question.
Their
Go
study
ahead.
will be out in October. They somehow, I don't know if they heard what I was doing, but their study will be over in October. But it's set up for failure at the start. And let me tell you how. Early detection and early treatment. That's common sense. That's the American healthcare system.
Sure.
What we're getting is what communist China has forced on the whole world. Don't wait until you're a breath away from death. Wait till the house is burned 2/3 down and then seek help.
This is what NIH is doing, you're saying?
This is what the CDC is telling us to do, and every authority is telling us don't seek help unless if you got mild to moderate symptoms. Wait till you have severe symptoms. I'm getting calls from people who go to the ER because they feel bad, and they're sent home with a positive test saying take Tylenol and tough it out at home. That is the standard of care that's being put out. That's a terrible plan for any health care problem, especially one that can kill you. And for 20% of the people, this is a killer. And we don't know who that 20% is, but if they have symptoms, we have something we can do about it. So the NIH is studying it. Let me tell you who else is. The country of France, which has lost over 30,000 people to this. Yeah. And Spain has said that they're going to study inhaled budesonide against COVID-19. They haven't set their start date yet. And last week, the University of Oxford announced that they're going to study inhaled budesonide against COVID. Whether they set the study up for failure, like I feel like the NIH has done, where they're going to wait until someone. The criteria by the NIH is you have to have pneumonia and be in the ICU and be on a ventilator before they'll even give you this.
Okay, I want to jump in. So this treatment you're describing, when NIH is somewhere aware that you've been using it and have had success with patients, and that you're ascribing the same success in these other countries you've mentioned. So why would the NIH, recognize what you're claiming, why would they test it by waiting until someone who's severely ill in the hospital? What is the reason not to test it in the way that you have been, which is early on first symptoms?
Why are we doing anything that we're doing right now, Debbie?
That's not a good question.
I'm just saying, what they did in Italy was social distancing, wear a mask, shut down everything. How did that work? Let's talk about what works, which is what I'm doing, which is what they're doing in Japan and Singapore and Taiwan, and that's early detection. It's good that we're doing mass testing now. I'm telling you, at the ER that I am associated with, they're doing testing now. They didn't have the ability to do the testing in March. We couldn't. We were scrambling to try to find where we could even send people to get tested in March. The reason the numbers are going up is that we're having 100 times the amount of tests being done right now.
And that's a good thing.
It's a good thing. Yeah. That's what they're doing in those countries. The early detection. Hey, we do that we don't wait. I've actually done biopsies on people who had abnormal mammograms, and during the biopsy, I've removed the whole cancer, and the person was cured with early detection. We don't say, wait till you got stage 4 cancer and then seek help. We don't do that with any other disease. I don't know why this is being forced on us, but it's un-American. And as far as our American...
It's cruel to people.
People are dying. That's pretty cool. And beyond that, it's crazy right now that if you get COVID, you get put in the hospital, your family can't be there to be your advocate.
Yeah.
I can't tell you how many times I've, as a doctor, have had loved ones in the hospital and they hang something. My daughter was pregnant. They hang something. I say, what are you giving her? It's half in her already. And they tell me, and I said, that's not for her, and it's for the room next door. You don't have an advocate in the room with you.
Here, Dr. Bartlett.
Well, I'm telling you the truth. A family member in the room is an advocate that you are not allowed to have right now. And if you'll look at what's going on right now, if we wanted to go with science, a scientific fact by definition is observable and reproducible.
Yeah.
And so when I started hearing people say, I feel better with inhaled budesonide, that was something that I'd never heard before. I observed it, and it's reproducible. But the decisions that are made that are being forced on us, for 20 years, we'd see there's an epidemic in China, and we'd see them rolling with people walking the streets with masks. It wasn't working for them then. I don't know why it's being forced on the whole world now, that kind of thinking. Something that's working in Japan and Singapore and is working with my patients, we should be focused on science and facts instead of fear.
There's some sort of manipulation toward encouraging America to just wait it out for a vaccine. I don't know if it's the pharmaceutical companies, if it's individuals in power invested in the pharmaceutical companies, but who would be telling Americans we'd rather you die because we want you to wait for a vaccine?
It seems like people are willing to sacrifice others for an agenda. It seems that way to me because we have some solutions already that are working. There's a track record of success by many doctors in Texas. And Texas is standing out compared to other states if you look as far as the survival rate. But, I think there is a lot of political motivation behind the decisions that are being made right now.
Okay, well, I do too, and I'm deeply troubled by them because I do, well, you don't have to agree with my assessment, but I'll tell you where my concern is. I think that in the first 5 today, I talked about the headlines and that, panic porn. I think there's a great agenda on the part of some in this country and many in the media that want to keep the economy damaged because of the results of the coronavirus, want to keep Americans afraid in their homes. All of that works against the re-election of President Trump.
Be afraid, be very afraid, because there's a pandemic. Oh, by the way, Debbie, we had a pandemic in 2009. It was the H1N1. And you know what? The flu strain and you know what? The flu strain that's going around right now is H1N1. Our patients that have the flu are having H1N1. We're not focused on that at all. It's not as big a deal as they thought it was. But you know what? I just saw an article that Anthony Fauci's warning us that we might have a new pandemic coming of H1N1 from China. It's already here. That's the strain that's already here. A lot of things that are being spoken, there's a lot of misinformation, a lot of things that are being blown out of proportion. And we have good news today. I'm here to tell you the good news.
I know, it's thrilling news.
Yes, look at those countries. Look at my results. I believe Dr. Lozano is doing the right thing as well.
And yet, it's just like we met this wall of opposition from the media and, frankly, the pharmacy companies are holding out hope for a vaccine.
Well, they say that there was a concern about a shortage of hydroxychloroquine. Let me tell you, budesonide inhaled steroid that's super cheap and readily available, pre-mixed, pre-measured, nobody's going to make any money off of it, is at every pharmacy. There is an abundance of it. There will never be a shortage. And so that accusation will not be valid.
Well, can't trip you up that way.
No.
Okay.
but they could do a study and set it up for failure and announce it in October.
Yeah. That is truly astonishing. It would be set up in a way that they're going to use it after people are already so sick that obviously that reduces. They would
not good medicine.
No, not good medicine. So what is your sense about, if you do what you're describing, early testing and all that, what is your sense about the importance of masks, the everyday use of masks?
You know, I'm going to pivot off of that because that's what they did in Italy in over 30,000 deaths. That's what they did in France, over 30,000 deaths. That's what they did in Spain, 30,000 deaths. In New York, parroted that, 30,000 deaths. Let's go with a winning strategy of early detection and early treatment with a winning strategy of a successful treatment. And that's what we have. We have an effective treatment that's cost effective, readily available at every pharmacy. And so there are several ways to treat this. There's several ways to treat the flu. You know, if I told you the reason we're going to shut down the country, shut down, hairdressers will not be able to have their salons open. We're going to shut down everybody's business.
Non-essential business.
Non-essential business, and we're going to start doing this craziness because tens of thousands are dying from a respiratory viral illness that's very contagious. Oh, that's the flu. Over 80,000 a year die from the flu, but we've never worn masks to protect people before. We've never insisted on that to save American lives. We have something that works. You know, if you look on the internet, you'll see in Japan, they're still crawling all over at each other at sushi bars, acting normal, and they have less than 1,000 that have died, over 121 million people. This social distancing thing is not what is saving them.
That was my next question on social distancing, because there have been many people challenging masks and social distancing, really from a political perspective, of feeling there's just too much control coming out of the government based on a health problem, and with penalties, actual penalties for business owners and personal people's lives, and the whole surrender of our economy, the people losing businesses. And it seems like those things should have been decided, doctors giving advice and people getting to decide themselves, but there's been a mandatory feel about this that's alarming people.
Yeah, when you have the government saying, I know more about what's good for your health than your doctor who knows you and your family, that's socialism. That's communism.
Yes.
And that's what we've seen not be a good idea in China. We were all in horror watching the apocalypse happen in China. People were dropping in the streets. Everybody saw that. And then we saw it, the wave spread across Italy to France, to Spain, and then to our country. And the strategy they were using is the same strategy they're still recommending, and now fining people possibly for not wearing a mask and social distancing. That strategy didn't work in any of those places, but we have some winning strategies that are working in other parts of the world, and that I'm also, that's now being studied and about to be studied by the University of Oxford and the country of Spain. We should go with the winning strategies.
I'm in favor of the winning strategy. I also wish, I'm glad that you were able to come today and talk about all this. I really wish there were more of a I don't know, national broadcasting system. It seems like doctors around the country, if you had more and more doctors doing what you're doing, you would end up where people just would be less alarmed. Fewer people would be worried. More doctors would be doing what you're doing. The numbers would have to dissipate in terms of death rates and hospitalization rates. And that just seems like the most obvious thing. So I know you said you went to, you're hoping to have President Trump see this. Taking to Ted Cruz. I love that he knows about
U.S.
it.
Representative Babin. My phone's been blowing up with a few phone calls. I had
good.
U.S. Representative Babin, who's been calling and texting me regularly from Texas. And I got a call the other day. I went to Texas Tech. And at Texas Tech, I went to the undergraduate, got my degree in medical technology in the first class of medical technology there, where we grow viruses and bacteria, and we study that, and we do the testing. And then I went to medical school there. And then I did my surgery residency there. So I'm a Texas Techer. So my phone blows up, and a guy calls me, and he says, "This is Kent Hance." Wow, he was the chancellor of Texas Tech, and I'm stuttering and fumbling to talk to him. I can't believe can I call you Richard? Yes, sir. And so he knows about this treatment. So I'm letting you know who knows about this, and we'll see what happens with it. But Kent Hance knows, Representative Babin knows, Ted Cruz has a paper. I believe it'll get to President Trump. I know there's a Star Parker who is with the White House, and she has my information. So we'll see who does something with this.
Okay. Star Parker of CURE, of the Center for Urban... No.
Star Parker with the government has a connection with the administration.
Well, she was on my show on Tuesday. That's kind of funny. Okay,
Interesting.
Well, anyway, yes. Okay, so let me ask you this. So if what you're describing were to be nationally adopted, so we had testing,
our country would be wide open again.
Well, the other question is, would there be a need for a vaccine then?
No. And is there a need for a vaccine right now with the same pandemic in Taiwan and Japan and Singapore and Iceland? Iceland's only had 10 die during this whole pandemic. That's a big, 7 in Taiwan. That's a minivan going down Central Expressway. When you see a minivan, everybody that's died in a country of over 24 million, they don't need...
And closely, a densely packed country.
Right. And so let's talk about the vaccine for a second, Debbie.
Yeah.
This is information people need to know. This is a rapidly mutating virus. In Iceland, they broke it down, the DNA of the virus, and they found 243 mutations already. And that was in April. But that's all right. We have an answer for it. There's several ways to treat this. I'm not scared of COVID anymore. Nobody else should be scared of COVID either.
I would not either. Go ahead.
You should not be scared of COVID anymore. I'm telling you, don't be scared of COVID. There are some ways to treat it. If your doctor won't treat you, find another doctor. But we're in America. And there is a solution. There's several solutions for this. I'm talking about one of them. Rapidly mutating virus. A vaccine's not going to be the solution. This is a coronavirus. It goes around every year, the common cold. We get flu vaccines every year, and at best it covers 40%. And so that's not a 100% success rate, and you have to get it every year. If they're going to make this vaccine, it's not going to be a one-time shot.
That was my
that will
last
cure
question.
You. And
yes.
By the way, the people like Anthony Fauci and Birx who brag that they've been working on a vaccine for AIDS for 40 years, and they have not been successful because it's a rapidly mutating virus, parallel to what we have now. So misinformation is out there being sent to doctors right now that we're not worried about a vaccine being made because this isn't changing much. The fact is that they're not going to get, unless they do some research, 243 mutations in a study in Iceland already. And so you're not going to be able to get a handle on this and make a safe, effective vaccine. Let's talk about vaccines in general, Debbie. When they had the race for the polio vaccine, Polio, An American Story, is a book that's out in 2005. The author was our keynote speaker for the Texas Medical Association, and he explained that thousands died from the vaccine, and tens of thousands were paralyzed or debilitated from the vaccine. We don't want to speed at warp speed towards a vaccine and force it on the American people when we don't, first of all, don't need it, and secondly, we need to make sure we don't miss any of the steps that prove that it's safe.
Yeah, the side effects. So I want to make clear one particular point. 243 mutations of this means
in Iceland.
In Iceland.
It's changing. It's changing. Trying to get a handle on it and make a vaccine.
Say the vaccine being looked at right now, they're trying to develop now, even if they made it was perfectly effective as to the current COVID-19 problem would not
May not
necessarily be
work 2
effective
months
for
from now.
all of the rest of the mutations. Is that correct?
Yes, and the beautiful thing about the treatment that I'm using is that no matter how many times it mutates, it's universally going to work because
Yes.
it decreases the inflammation. It's a respiratory anti-inflammatory solution for a respiratory inflammatory problem. And I've had people go through many adventures. Each person's COVID story is different. But thank you, Jesus, all of them have lived. None of them have died. And I am ecstatic. I would think that any American
Everyone should be
person would be
ecstatic.
excited about it.
Yeah. Dr. Richard Bartlett, this is a fabulous, first of all, I'm so glad we connected, interesting kind of at a political meeting, but I'm so glad we connected, so glad you can come in. I love all the information you shared. If people want to, is there a place they can read right now more about what you're doing? Is there something they can go to, or they have to wait for your paper? Or?
Have them contact you, and I'll send you a copy of my own published paper with all the references.
That sounds
and
great.
You will have what President Trump will have in his hand next week. You will have what Senator Cruz has in his hand. Whether he reads it or not and what he does with it is up to him. But you're going to have what he has, and it's working.
And if you want to get that, email me at americacanwetalk@gmail.com, americacanwetalk@gmail.com. I will happily forward the paper once I receive it from Dr. Richard Bartlett. Sir, thank you so much for coming in. This is fabulous. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Debbie. It's a good day to be in Texas.
It is a good day to be in Texas.